of the 200 and however many years we've been in existence, we've been at war 90% of those years. Fighting this person, fighting that person, fighting the Native American tribes, fighting the Civil War, fighting the Spanish, fighting in World War I, fighting in World War II, fighting in Korea, fighting in Vietnam, fighting in Iraq. The fighting goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Now we've been in Afghanistan for 17 years? 17 years. I don't know who we're fighting over there, but we're there for 17 years. You'd think victory would be proclaimed at some point. But at any rate, what you see that this idea that without a moral code that says thou shalt not kill from a supernatural entity, i.e. the Creator, the moral code that exists on earth without him is a moral code that has no foundation whatsoever. It's kill or be killed. And under those circumstances, I've seen atheists argue, well, look, we can reach a fundamental agreement between us, an ethical agreement that we're not going to kill each other. Maybe, but what if I don't want to agree with that? I could choke you to death right here and now, and you would have no moral reason why I shouldn't do it. Because I can, therefore I should. That's what situational ethics are. Okay, there are no absolutes. And I've heard many existentialists argue, and they'll say, oh, well, there are no absolutes. And I say to them, well, do you mean that absolutely? Or is there an exception? And if there is an exception, then that means there's one absolute, in which case your whole premise falls apart. And if you're saying there are no absolutes, that itself is an absolute, right? But under situational ethics, there are no moral standards, merely temporal agreements among people at war with one another. Okay, next slide. Since Yah is capable of being perceived, known through the senses, the denial of Yah requires some other form of sensual foundation. So when you're talking about knowledge here, you either have a knowledge that there is a Creator, and you have a knowledge that he's responsible for that which exists. And you have the knowledge that he is a Yah who hears, who sees, who understands, who is conscious, and who speaks. You either know this or you don't. And if you don't know this, then those people who do know this appear to you to be absolutely insane and off their rocker. You believe in a God that speaks? What are you, some kind of a drifty? They give you this kind of attitude, right? You pray, you think there's somebody in heaven that's listening to you? What are you, some kind of a whack job? We all know that the only thing that exists is what my eyes can see, what my nose can smell, what my fingers can touch, what my tongue can taste, right? This is the only thing that exists. So with these people, it's very easy to say, well, look, Abraham Lincoln didn't exist at all. When you talk about any kind of history whatsoever, there's no single person here that was alive back in 1800 to be able to tell us what existed. We have to rely on somebody telling us the story. And then how do we know that it's true? Well, Scripture tells us by the testimony of two or three witnesses, the matter can be established. Assuming that those witnesses are willing to tell you the truth. Assuming there's no willing liar in the mix who's bearing false witness, which is why we have the command, thou shalt not bear false witness, because when you bear false witness, you destroy all of the historical record and the ability for every single human being to know beyond that which he immediately perceives himself. And so when you're in that kind of a situation, if you're stuck in a situation, I only believe what I perceive right in front of me. You don't know if there's a downtown distant from where you're sitting right now. You don't know what exists around the corner. You have to rely on some kind of a construct, some kind of testimony that exists in your mind to tell you that there is something there, okay? Now, when you talk about people who say, well, there is no Yah, these are people, these terrorists, there is no Creator, there is no Yah, therefore what? Well, then they're going to build their foundation on something. But when you realize that they cannot accept the idea that, gee, I can accept something as truth predicated upon the witnesses of two or more people. No, I can only believe that which I perceive. And so as a result, you see that all of their truth is premised upon either sexual functionality or scatological discharge. Now, when I say this to you, it's very easy to demonstrate. You go to any, cable show, or you go to a lot of the YouTube channels out there, or you go to a lot of the other discussion that's out there, and you see people that are in the pop world, the mainstream world, the non-believing world, and everything that they use to describe anything has to have some tie to either sexual functionality or scatological discharge, period. They use 4-letter words to describe these things, and those 4-letter words appear as adverbs, adjectives, pronouns, proper nouns, for heaven's sakes, everything. And so pretty soon you see people describing the whole world as these things. And once they do, once you begin to describe the world in these 4-letter words, you lose the cognitive tool to correctly describe that which exists, because you're describing it as the same way you're describing this person, the same way you describe this car, the same way you describe this road, the same way you describe that store, the same way you describe the couch you're sitting on, right? Oh, that's a POS, right? Well, it's not, but you can't identify it. After a certain number of years of calling everything that, you can't identify what actually exists because you don't know the words. And your mind does not know the concept because you have not caused recognition to be associated with the term that correctly identifies it.